because I was hugging people.
You were hugging. You always hug way too many people, but then you come in with the only dumbasses believe that
Right,
shit.
yeah, and then you're like,
Alright, we're back. We're talking some FF7. We have a bit of a different video today. We have, I don't know if it's just like a interview sort of thing or just a discussion, but we have Briana White and John Eric Bentley, the English voice actors for both Aerith and Barret, respectively, of course, just talking, I guess, for like an hour. It's like an hour-long video dropped by Square Enix a few days ago. As per usual, stuff like this, I'm going in relatively blind. These are kind of, sort of like reaction videos in some way, because I'm not doing a literal reaction video, because that'd be atrocious to do for an hour straight. But I don't really know much about it. I have seen a few things. One was a clip on Twitter where Briana talked about something that happened with a couple at a convention, which was a pretty cool story. And I think we've seen a headline where Briana said something along the lines of like thinking she wouldn't do a good job as Aerith or something like that. And as far as I'm aware, that's all I know from this video. But to be completely honest with you, and not to take away anything from Briana, I'm just here for John. I love John Eric Bentley. Barret is, of course, one of my favorite characters in FF7, and probably when I think about it, really one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. Zack being the first, of course. But John Eric Bentley's portrayal of Barret in the remake series is by far my favorite. And again, not to take anything away from Briana or anybody else on the English voice acting cast for the remake project, but this for me is really just an hour-long John Eric Bentley video, so let's get into it.
that's a mean line.
I just realized watching that intro what this is, because we did a video like this not too long ago with Matt Mercer and Ben Starr. Of course, the voices of Vincent Valentine and Clyde Brosfeld, which was a very fun video, honestly. Those two have really, really great chemistry in interviews and discussions and stuff like that. So now that I know what this is, it's kind of exciting, because this is something I actually think I mentioned in that video that I want more of this, more crossover. I think specifically I wanted crossover between games where, like, you know, maybe an FF10 voice actor talks with an FF7 voice actor or something along those lines. But it's still cool, you know, getting the FF7 voice cast together.
John, I'm so happy to be talking with you.
First of all, out of all the people in the cast, I mean, everybody's mad cool, don't get me wrong.
True.
But you and I have been on this journey since
E3 2019.
It makes this discussion a little bit better that they have this kind of like friendship, I guess, that goes back to E3 2019, right? I guess maybe where they first met, because we're obviously doing voice recording before then, but I know we talked about it back then that, like, I think a lot of the voice acting, or I think all of it was done like individually. They weren't in the same room at the same time type shit. So I guess maybe they didn't really meet until E3 2019, but I guess they've been friends more or less since then.
But our first time meeting was E3 2019 when the Tifa trailer was released.
and
Everybody saw Tifa for the first time, and we
Yeah.
were sitting in the theater, and we got to hear everyone lose their mind.
I forgot.
The E3 2019 crowd reaction to the Tifa reveal, super iconic.
Especially with my lack of experience, I got to ask you, hey, is this normal? Is that normal? Am I just not cut out for this? And I will never forget what you said to me. Sitting across the table from me,
What did I say, Breezy?
you said they cast you for a reason. And you are allowed to be in that booth and to bring what makes you special
Yep.
to the acting.
This is potentially like the headline that I've seen, maybe, where she talked about being like unsure. Maybe she gets into that more next or in the video as we go or something. I don't know entirely, but this goes to show how good of a guy John is, right? She's a little bit down on herself. She's an inexperienced actress, and like he tells her, like, you're here for a fucking reason, dude. They didn't cast you as Aerith for no reason, so you're clearly good for the job. You're clearly the person they want.
I got to brag on you because you did come to me and go, "This is my first job. I don't know if when you were in the booth, did you?" And so we shared all that, and you were very, very vulnerable and very protected or guarded
Yeah.
is the word.
Yeah.
And I still think people are sleeping on you.
I'm not necessarily going to disagree with John here, because I do think that she's pretty recognized for the most part. She has gotten nominations from several different like places and stuff for supporting actress, and he actually shows the Golden Joystick Award after what he said right there. But I will say I think he's more slept on than she is, right? Like, because that's a big complaint a lot of us had towards the award season at the end of last year is, where's his nominations at? I know he got one, because I remember like tweeting about it, and everybody was excited to see him finally get a nomination for something. Even he tweeted about it, said, can a Barret get a nomination or something like that? So it's like, I think he's definitely more slept on than anybody in the cast, obviously. To kind of further what John says, right, about her being slept on, like the remake project was her first voice acting gig. And that's kind of insane to think about. If you have no prior history of voice acting, you just try out for the remake project, never having been a voice actor in your life, and they cast you as one of the most prominent characters in the story. Like, that goes to show how talented you are. With other people like John and like Cody and Tyler and them, like they're actors already, right? So it's probably not that hard to do voice acting. I don't know if they had any other voice acting credits before the remake project, but they already had a history of acting, right? So like, it kind of makes sense that they could get cast into a video game. So for her to be like, I think she's just like a content creator, right? Like Strange Rebel Gaming and stuff like that. So to be in the remake project is just kind of insane. From here, John goes on to tell a pretty good story of how his acting career began at the age of 5, where he was given the opportunity to recite the Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech at school. And it was actually like in the Chicago area where the riots happened after MLK died. And he didn't realize back then, obviously, because he was young, the power of words and like how people reacted to that in the area because they obviously lived through that shit.
We were on the west side of Chicago, and it was in the same area where the riots happened when King was killed. The teacher said, "Hey, I want someone to do the Martin Luther King speech." And I said, "Oh, okay." And my mom was like, "Yeah, he'll do it."
Really? She volunteered
She volunteered me. And I said, "Okay, cool," you know, because I could read. And she said, "No, you're going to memorize it." I said, "What does that mean? I'm 5.
Yeah.
And she said, "I want you to memorize it, and I want you to present it, you know, to the people." And so I memorized it, and we did it. And I'll never forget the reaction of the people who were watching. Because first of all, it was in that community. Second of all, the people who came to the graduation were coming to see their grandchildren or their children. And so all of the people who had been through that time in life applauded and cried and called out. And I went, wait a minute, words can make people feel that way? Emotions can come forth like that?
That's such a great story, right? And it seems like his mom is such an intelligent person because, for one, as he talked about in the video, she taught him to read at a very young age because he could read by the age of 5, right? But also her telling him to memorize it, because that makes it so much more powerful to have a kid come out on stage and recite it from memory as opposed to just simply reading off a piece of paper, right? And that had so much more weight to the performance, right? And given the reaction of the people in the crowd, it definitely paid off. And that kind of kicked off, I guess, his acting career. I don't necessarily want to gloss over Briana's like origin story for how she began acting and stuff, but she says it herself, it's not very impactful like his was. And it's also just like school plays and stuff like that, right? And that's kind of it.
Tell me 2 of the greatest stories that you've heard from fans and from people who have come up to you about the impact that you've made as Aerith.
I can tell you a story about a couple that came to my table in Portland and purchased a print from me. And so I'm, you know, do you want your name on it? Sure, I'll write your name on it. Do you want a quote? Sure, I'll write the quote. I'm signing it, and I start to hear one of the couple, she's an Aerith cosplayer. She's in her Aerith cosplay, and I hear her start to sob. And it's not the first time someone has cried when they've come up to my booth. So I'm about to, you know, comfort her like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm just a person. You know, I know it means a lot to you, but it means a lot to me too. Like, I'm so happy you're here. I don't even get to say that because I see her sobbing, covering her face. And then I look, and the Zack cosplayer that she came with is on one knee and proposed to her while I was signing their print right in front of my table.
That's awesome.
I couldn't believe I was so shocked, and it was amazing. And
awesome.
She said yes, and then everybody clapped, and it was like the most special moment ever. I will never forget that.
That's
the
really
fact
cool.
that they thought that meeting me and getting a print signed from me is such a special moment for them that they wanted to make it even more special by cementing their future together
Oh my gosh.
in front of me. Like,
That's so good.
come on.
That's awesome.
What am I supposed to do?
Oh, that's so awesome.
Like, that's mind-boggling, you know?
That's great.
You know what? Briana couldn't get me to cry when it comes to FF7 Rebirth or Remake, but her telling that story has got the waterworks going a little bit. As I get older, for some reason, when other people get emotional, it makes me emotional, and I don't know why, because not so long ago, that didn't used to be a thing, but I can't fucking help it anymore. It's such like an insane experience, too, that I can't even imagine what that feels like as like an actor, right? That, like, somebody's such a fan of your work that they want to, like, propose to their significant other, right? Commit to the forever and shit in front of you as you're signing a print for them and stuff. Like, I don't know, man. I can't even imagine. It's got to be such a rewarding feeling. From like that point onward, you're like a kind of a major part of their life, right? They're already a fan of yours, obviously. But the fact that they got engaged, like, literally right in front of you, like, for the rest of their lives and their marriage, like, you're technically kind of a part of that. And look, I don't want to ruin the sweet moments and bring in the shipping stuff, but let's not ignore the Zack cosplayer proposing to the Aerith cosplayer in front of the Aerith voice actor. My dude, your tell is literally in front of the camera.
What about you? What's your tops convention moment?
There were several, But there was one guy in Detroit, and I guess it was more memorable for me because this brother reminded me of a family member. So he came to me and said, "Hey, I just wanted to meet you. I just wanted to meet you, because you're my fan. I'm a fan. You my dude. I put you in my party all the time."
Pause there very briefly just because I got to agree with it. I'll pause there very briefly and then let John continue this amazing story. But I got to agree with this guy, though, that Barrett's in my party all the damn time. Whether that's OG FF7 or also Remake / Rebirth. He's by far my most used character.
Big dude, right? He's bigger than me. So I'm like, all right, cool, man. It's great. He said, "I'll be right back." And I'm like, okay. He came back and he brought his girl. And his girl's like, "This is who I told you I wanted to meet." And she's like, "I'm so glad." He's like, "The only reason I'm here is because my brother told me that you were here. I just got off work. I wanted to come and meet you. And my girl's here." And he said, "She doesn't even know how big this is for me." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Do you want me to do something?" He said, "Oh yeah, let's do something for her." And he did something for her. They left.
Okay.
He came back again. He said, "Listen, my girl didn't understand why I told her to leave so I can come back and talk to you." And I said, "What's up?" He said, "You started the day when we were in line, and you came in and you put on some music."
I remember that, yeah.
And I'm like, there's something about it. I just needed to move, right? Because we were starting our days. It was Sunday.
It was Sunday.
And we were
yeah,
all
I was really
tired, and I'm like, let me put up this music on. I told everyone, I said, "I know it's Sunday, and I know this isn't a church song, but we're about to have church up in here." And he came back. He said, "That right there made me know that something special is about to happen." I'm like, "What's going to happen?" He said, he told me his whole story, and the story was brutal. And he said, when I left with my girl the second time, I went behind this podium and I just cried. He said, she didn't see me. He said, "I cried and I came back. I wanted to talk to you about it because you walked with me and you prayed with me, and no one's done that for me." He said, "The only person who's done that for me is my grandmother." He said, "And this happened in the church, and the pastor came up to me and he said, he encouraged me. He said, that was what that was for me today." And I was like, whew. And I'm like trying not to cry. I'm trying to be tough like him. He's gone. I'm gone. And I'm like, "Walk with me. Let's just talk and pray." And we did. And I won't forget that. I'll never forget the impact that our platform has allowed us to have.
Yeah.
So back-to-back emotional stories, man, and it's kind of crazy because you don't know like the impact that what you do like has on somebody's life. Like, you wouldn't think initially going into like a voice acting role for a video game character that would have these kinds of impacts where people want to propose in front of you or tell you like their life story and all this other stuff and how you help with like I guess the tragedy in their lives and things. Like it's crazy to think about, man.
Well, I mean, talk about yourself. You have been able to craft a role of a man who is so tough and yet so incredibly soft. Barret is as tough as iron, but also he's so soft and so gentle with Marlene. And you're showing people that manly men can be both.
Yeah.
And that is so important, and it's such a rare portrayal.
That's definitely true, right? When it comes to the character of Barret, like to a certain degree, like his over-the-top, angry, loud side is a bit of a facade. It's definitely him for sure, because he definitely fucking hates Shinra and wants to destroy them. But when you see him with like Marlene, that's really who Barret is at his core. Also, as she mentions with John's portrayal, like showing that like, a big tough guy like Barret can be emotional. And it's definitely a very important message to have, right? Because there still is that mindset these days of like manly men and men should have emotions and men shouldn't cry and whatever the fuck. And a lot of men have that mindset of like they need to bottle up their emotions, right? And they're like, nah, I don't give a fuck, dude. I mean, I tell you guys every time something makes me emotional. I mentioned this video more than once at this point. I don't give a shit.
I mean, truly, I think it's up there as far as like video game dads with like Joel. Like someone who's super tough and yet super, super caring and loving as well. Like Barret is that. And Barret is that because John is that.
It's actually a very interesting comparison. I never thought about like Barret, Wallace, and like the pantheon of video game dads and like comparing him to Joel. But to a certain degree, I think, you could, because Joel, look what Joel does at the end of The Last of Us 1 for Ellie, right? And Barret would go to those links too for Marlene. And he kind of has, with bombing reactors and stuff like that. So like, it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm getting emotional talking about it. God damn it. Now, obviously what Joel does at the end of The Last of Us 1 is a bit controversial. And I don't think Barret would actually like slaughter what are technically like kind of innocent people, right? But you get what I mean though. Like Barret would go to certain links for those he cares about, right? Just like Joel will. Before we move on from this, and I don't want to fall down like a Last of Us rabbit hole with this particular video, I do want to say that I do support what Joel does at the end of the first game, but he is technically kind of a bad guy at the end of the game. That's kind of the point of the story.
But thank you for that. And, that was the goal.
Yeah.
You know that, though. We've had this conversation before where we didn't want Barret to be a caricature. We wanted him to have layers and for people to see layers. That was very important to me.
I don't have like a ton to add to that, but it kind of reminded me of like back in 2019 when we got the first kind of like re-reveal trailer of the remake project, I think it's State of Play. And we got like all of like, I think it was like fucking like 5 seconds of Barret talking. And it was like him kind of yelling his lines in combat and in a different scene.
I'm here for you to help take the load off your shoulders. That's easy enough.
And yeah, like, and I think Kotaku or something wrote an article of like racist Barret, stereotype Barret, fucking Mr. T Barret, all that shit. I remember doing a video about it and ranting because I'm like, y'all are basing this off of a couple of seconds of dialogue, half of which is in the middle of combat, where of course he's going to be yelling. And I totally get like if you kind of like racist discussion when it comes to the original FF7 with its like localization and again the Mr. T comparison, but like if you played any aspect of Remake and obviously Rebirth now at this point, like there's no racism, stereotype, anything when it comes to Barret. It seems like, at least according to John, like that was part of his portrayal, right? He wanted to avoid that, of course.
For scenes that you know are coming or find out that they're coming that actually require emotion from you, do you get a chance to prep or how do you prep?
No, I really don't get to prep. No, even for scenes that are incredibly impactful and emotional, like the end of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example, I didn't get any notice ahead of time. And we never do.
But you never knew that was coming that day, right?
That day. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know until the lines pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
So look, I'm far from a professional when it comes to any of this shit, obviously. I don't know shit about voice acting or whatever, but it seems kind of dumb to me. Like, what is the harm in letting people know that they're going to do, like, a very important, impactful, emotional scene ahead of time? Like, why couldn't they say, hey, Briana, tomorrow, by the way, we're going to record the ending of FF7 Rebirth. Like, it's a pretty important scene, emotional, impactful scene. Maybe you get prepared for it a little bit, right? Instead of being like, I'm in the booth recording and, like, here's the fucking ending script. Like, what the hell? How do you even... It's kind of crazy to hear that from Briana herself, that, like, she didn't know till that day, as she's already in the booth waiting for, the fucking script to come up on screen, that that's what she was recording for that day, like, the ending of Rebirth. And maybe that's something to do with, the ending kind of missing for some people, and I don't want to put the blame on her, because it's not her fault if she didn't know she was recording for it that goddamn day. But, for me personally and some others out there, the ending didn't quite hit. And there's other aspects of the ending for why it didn't hit, but maybe that's some degree of it.
This is how I look at it. And I know you do too, you just don't say it like this. I got this much time on Earth.
Yeah.
This much time. I got that much time to meet people. If I'm in a convention and if people have come to meet me for this, then I want them to get the best of me that they can get in that amount of time.
Great, like, perspective and mindset to have, right? People are coming to these conventions to see you for, video games or whatever, and it's like, if they're coming to see you, just give them the best that you have at all times, right? And it does seem like every time I've seen John in, like, interviews or anything like that, he's always just high energy, which is what they're kind of talking about.
But I just think it's coming into the realization of, well, if I was a fan, what would I want? And don't get me wrong, because you and I both know there are some fans that want a little bit more, and we can't give them that.
Yes.
Can't give them that.
Yes.
Can you sign my back? Nope. I'm not signing your shoulder with a Sharpie. So
You've never signed a shoulder before, John. Come on.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought they were going to some darker places than just signing a shoulder. Like, I mean, I guess it's kind of weird. I feel like I would do it though. If somebody was like, "Dude, sign my shoulder," I'm like, "Okay, whatever, I guess." Boom. I will say right now, I'm not exactly sure where we're at minute-wise in the video, but there is a lot throughout this video of them, like, kind of big upping each other on, like, how they are in person, behind the scenes, or how they are, in the games as voice actors and things like that. And it's like, it's wholesome and it's cool to see. It's not necessarily anything we can talk about, so we are skipping quite a bit throughout this video.
I hope that at the end of the day, I expressed how I really feel and that it's not just about me. It's not, I didn't do this alone. It has my name on it, but it should have everyone's name on it. I leaned on you for your advice. I really leaned on our director and the audio engineer and the writers. I mean, the writers who gave us
Unreal.
beautiful versions of these words that had to fit in the exact timing of the Japanese performances.
It's actually a really good point that she brings up when you think about it, because, like, you have, whether it's movies, video games, or whatever, you have, like, actors that win awards and stuff, like Best Actor, but it's like, it's not just them It's also the people that are in the scenes with them. I guess in the case of like voice acting, a lot of times you're not in the room with the other person doing voice acting, so you're not really bouncing off of them necessarily, unless they got maybe the recordings to hear. But as she mentions, they do have like directors and producers and people that write the scripts and things like that. And it's like there's a lot that goes into the performance besides just the actor. So it is cool for them to win awards, but it really, at the end of the day, isn't just them. We kind of skip forward a bit more here, but John talks about for a little bit about, you know, having to do like the English version of stuff whenever you're like, you're looking at the mocap and like hearing like the Japanese side of like the voice acting in your ear and trying to, you know, do that in English essentially, and how to like try to do Barret not so like over the top in certain scenes and things like that. But he actually goes on to talk about the trailers and the critics like kind of, I guess, bitching about, you know, the way Barret sounds in the trailers, which is kind of funny because I brought that shit up earlier in the video.
But
You did.
well, here's the deal.
You did do a good job.
That was one of the trailers that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody who's seen, all the critics let him have it. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
well, he's doing this, and the Barret's not black, and what is it? You hear all these crazy things,
All these
and you go,
opinions based off a trailer.
right.
I'm just saying, you boys been a day one. I've been here since 2019, defending Barret, defending John from these shitty critics that know what the fuck they're talking about.
And as big and as boisterous as he is, he has to be that way because he has to prove to this new guy. And then the other team already knows, oh, here's one of his speeches again. You know, so this is what we're going to do. But no one wanted to look at the fact that this is a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And so that's how I had to explain to people, you know, this is the beginning, a middle, and an end. You can't just judge it off of a trailer.
The entirety of Barrett's story arc with Dine is so incredibly complex. It's very heavy, but also it's incredibly relatable. You managed to take a fantastical story that is fully Final Fantasy and make it about two real people.
So I've spoken about the Dying segment quite a bit on the channel over the last almost year at this point. I do think it's still a powerful scene, and I've said it before, like the Dying segment in Rebirth and then the Barret trial segment in Rebirth are the only two moments in the game that got me like emotionally invested and, you know, teary-eyed and all that other shit. So like there's still great scenes. I do think there were aspects of the Dying segment that were a bit mishandled, at least in comparison to the original FF7, and it had nothing to do with John's performance. In fact, if John wasn't there in those scenes, they might have been worse in my eyes. In this segment, they were talking about their favorite scenes of each other's, and she brought up the Dying segment. Of course, we had to kind of weigh in on it and talk about it. Again, I think it is one of the most emotionally powerful scenes in the game, but it could have been even better.
But it's not my favorite.
What's your favorite?
My favorite is, imagine Barret and Cloud running through the forest chasing a dog.
Oh, that.
And Barret talks about how Marlene is just his little baby, and one day he's gonna have to let her go.
Yeah, that
and
was
he
fun.
just talks about all the classic father things.
This is definitely like a good side quest and like character moment for Barret whenever he talks about Marlene and he gets all emotional, his voice cracks and stuff like that, which Don talks about in the video. It's definitely nice to always get to see like through that hard exterior that Barret tries to put up.
And I know that there are a lot more talented actors out there than me. Many more. Same thing. I'm the same way. But we were called for such a time as this, right? We've been talking about our craft and how we do it.
Yeah.
So therefore, we got the job. Thank goodness. Let's hold on to that. And I think that's what makes it unique when we put the personalization in it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, there's plenty of other people that could have got it, but we did.
Yeah.
So they heard something that they liked, and we're about to go into part 3
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
So I always say, when you're called for such a time as this, nobody can really take that away from you unless you choose to give it away. But whatever it was, we got the job,
Yeah.
right?
And we
So
just have to
now-
make the most of it.
Not just the most of it, we have
Yeah.
to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And we have to give justice to the writing.
Yeah.
And we have to honor the legacy behind it.
Yeah.
And they knew that we would. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So don't let anybody take that from you.
You're the best. This was wonderful.
This is
I
awesome.
knew it would be.
It's breezy.
Because it's John.
Breezy.
Any excuse I get to chat with John, I'll take it.
Let's keep it up.
Let's do it.
We got part 3 coming out.
Part 3.
See Selma.
And of course, is the end of that video. That last little bit I played there was cut up from like a kind of a bigger section that I kind of got rid of the kind of the middle parts that didn't matter too much and got to like the more like heartfelt moments and the cooler lines and things like that. can't stand not being a part of the videos these days. But that video was great, man. It was great to hear those two talk, and kind of comparing it to the Matt Mercer and Ben Starr video. Like, I think they're probably the same level of like interesting. Like the Ben and Matt one was a lot more funny, a lot more comedy in it, and there's definitely comedy in this one, but this one had a lot of emotion in it because they both get emotional multiple times throughout, which then makes me get emotional. It definitely has me looking forward to like the next one, and if they want to do like FF7 cast again, I mean, it kind of makes some sense because, you know, there's still another game to market, so you could kind of use this as marketing, having the cast members talk to each other and shits. I mean, an obvious one would be Cody and Britt, you know, Cloud and Tifa talking, but I would also like to see Cody and Caleb having, you know, Cloud and Zach talk to each other. It'd be kind of interesting. I would obviously love to see Tyler talk about this shit. I know he did. I would obviously love to see Tyler talk in one of these kind of interviews for like an hour, just, you know, talking about the role of Sephiroth and his perspective on the character of Sephiroth, things like that. Would be very interesting because I know he's talked very little. I think over the last like handful of years that, you know, the remake project's really been a thing. He's not done a ton of interviews that I've seen, at least. You guys throw us a curveball, like switch up from like the main cast, like give me like the fucking Rufus voice actor in somebody, dude. Like, but the video is long enough, so I'm not gonna keep you guys anymore. That's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search network in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @YT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.